This is a very interesting panel to moderate. And I can tell you, I know that all the CXOs in the room have their Data Act in check. So how many people have a database or data warehouse? Only one, I'm shocked. How many people have a data specialist or a data team? Or someone who has a role called data in the organization? Okay? So most people understand that data is the future. But now the problem comes when we speak about data innovation. And I know, because I was speaking to one of my good friends, that all of you, or most of you, have actually put in their performance development objectives for 2024, innovation. Am I right? And some of you actually sadly put, I am going to bring data innovation into the organization before end of year. And the reason why you came here today is just to make sure that you get some tips on how you make sure that you get that objective checked. So we will actually start off by looking at that topic, which is data innovation. And I'll just quickly start off by setting the scene. What is data innovation? And I'll give an opportunity, starting from you, my friend, to just give us a view of what is the understanding of data innovation in your line of work, and what are the key facets that make it possible to innovate with data? Go ahead.
Thank you.
It's fine.
Yeah. Thank you, Hartnell. So data insights, right? Data innovation is the use of data insights. Okay, by definition, use of data insights to for an organization to have insights or use data decisions, right, to be able to make well-informed decisions. Okay, use of data insights to make well-informed decisions, right, and also enhance the speed and customer experience at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So thank you for the response. Maybe I'll just go to you, Hasmukh. As you understanding that data is actually driving growth and transformation in organizations, what are those critical facets that you feel are important for us to innovate with data?
So thank you very much. First, thanks for getting my name right. Many people don't get my name right at the first time. So thanks a lot. All right, good. So to answer your question, the first facet or first factor we look at is the customer experience. Okay, how is it enhancing, improving the customer experience? BUI, I work with BUI. We are a consulting partner. We do projects for our customers. And when I talk to CEOs and CIOs, absolutely we talk about the data explosion, which is really, growing at what, 300%. And the question gets asked, so what does it mean for me? And what does it mean for my customer? And this is where we come in and we explain and we talk about what is the current organization and how do you move forward given the data explosion, given the various data sources that you currently have which you did not have previously. And leads to questions such as the CEO would tell me, you know what, I have multiple lines of business. If you ask me what is my most profitable line, I don't know. Or where is the biggest growth coming from? I don't know. But if you ask me the bottom line for all the businesses, yeah, that I know. But to dive in, to get the intimate detail about each of these areas, I don't know. And this is, to me, this is the times we live in. There's so much data that is there. How are we? I think we are not asking the correct questions. The correct questions are: how are you making the data work for you? How deeper are you going into the data? What tools, what analytic tools are you using? What can they be used better? Yeah, and that's what we are seeing a lot.
Excellent, excellent. So still on setting the scene, if we go to Ken, what is the difference between this new approach that we are calling data-driven and the traditional approaches that have been there before?
Thank you, Hartnell. Let me first begin by saying that the statistic you've just mentioned about CIOs having data-driven innovation on their KPIs is true. Actually, 70% of CIOs right now have that as their strategic goal for next year. So traditionally, as we have just defined data-driven innovation, so traditionally, we didn't look at data as an enabling factor to innovate. What most businesses used to do is that they only looked at data as or at the end of, let's say, processes that they have been able to use to collect data. Right now, the current or the data-driven way of doing things to be able to innovate is by putting data at the center stage of doing every single step of the business. And this brings me to the concept of what we call organizational ambidexterity. So you realize that organizations need to understand or find the balance between using data for doing their day-to-day activities and finding an ROI, and being able to use data to do exploration. So looking forward to be able to innovate and come up with new ideas or new services for their clients.
So excellent. And I think when you bring out the aspects of exploration, excuse me, you have to bring out the aspects of how do you balance your exploitation and exploration of data? Because the more you keep on exploring what you can do with data, you also have to spend some time exploiting what you know will create value for you. I think we can move forward to Dennis. Let's go down now into the examples of how you actually do this. Within your line of work, maybe share some few examples. How have you been able to embrace data-driven innovation, and what has been the impact for you?
Thanks, Hartnell. So for us, we are in the lending business and specifically device financing. And I must say that data has been very, very important. And as my fellow panelists have said, use of data must be very intentional. You must consider when you're starting a project, you must realize that I'll use data in phase one, or this is how I'll use the data, not at the end of the project. So for us, we started, I think, in 2022. Basically, we were very new, had never done that kind of business. And using IT and analytics, we were able to basically align ourselves very fast. What I can say data has helped us, it helped us become very flexible, make decisions very, very fast. Because data was part of our systems, then we're able to understand this is what the market needs, this is what we are doing. So one of the key examples maybe that I can do is we were able to do real-time credit scoring of customers. So within, let's say 2 minutes of customer registering on our system, we would be able to know which exact device would the customer get, as compared to what was in the industry at the time, which would take over 30 minutes. That alone gave us a very good head start. Yeah, I think that's
real-time credit scoring is a very interesting use case that you've shared there. Yeah. Francis, we're actually all curious about NIVAS and how you bake in data-driven approaches into your strategy. Being in the fast mover consumer goods sector, how is the use of data, given that you collect a lot from what is happening in your branches, being shaped into your strategy?
Okay, thank you, Hartnell, for that question. So maybe just a quick knowledge about NIVAS. So we generate about 30 gigabytes of data per day. Translates to about a terabyte of data on a monthly basis, 12 terabytes of data every year. How do we make sure that comes into the strategy of NIVAS? There's a lot that goes into opening a branch. If I may give an example. We have to study the area where we are opening a branch. We have to look at the demographics. We have to look at the disposable income for those, for the people who live in that area. And alongside that, relying on the data that we have, we then look at the products that people are buying. So we look at basket mix, and from the point when we open a branch, we are constantly looking at 3 major KPIs. We are looking at footfall, how many transactions are we conducting in that branch on a daily basis, how many SKUs are we running in a branch. Typically, it's about 14,000 in a given branch. And we are constantly comparing our sales for the previous year and the current year. Like in every organization, one of the key KPIs is continuous growth in every organization. So we always have to look what are our competitors doing, what can we do better. So data is quite central in Naivas.
Excellent. And maybe now we can just shift from setting the scene to actually how we make sure that we are able to implement data-driven technologies. So just coming back to you, Kevin. Data-driven innovation is all about transformation and culture change. What are the specific conditions and the company posture expected so that you can actually be able to quickly tackle this wave of transformation?
Right. Thank you, Hartnell. So the number one thing to enable this digital infrastructure is to make sure that you break down the barriers when it comes to information, right? Usually for most organizations, information is in silos. So number one is to break down these silos. Number two is the organizational culture. You have to have a culture and push for a culture within the organization that is decision fast, right? Using data to make a decision driven for the organization, right? So people in your organization, they make decisions based on this kind of data. I'll give you an example like what we do at Relational. Some of the solutions that we're seeing customers implement around loan origination, debt management, right? They are integrating tools like robotic process automation, digital process automation, decision engines, and we are seeing massive growth for our customers for how they do the process, how they share information within the organization, right? So this helps at the end of the day to make sure your customer has a good experience because the decisions are made faster, right? And also for the organization, you free up their time to do more impactful things, right? The rest of your team to engage in impact processes within the organization.
Yeah, and it's interesting you're bringing the aspect of impact from data because when you're actually looking at how you roll out your data strategy, you'll not only focus on the offensive use of data to create more impact, but also the defense. So maybe I'll bring you here in Hasmukh. If you look at the defensive side of data, we are all speaking about driving growth, driving innovation. How do you handle the other side of the coin? Data governance, data quality issues, privacy, security. How do you actually make sure that you're also having a very clear sight on this as you're innovating within the organization?
I think it's a very large question there.
Yeah.
But to answer it in 2 ways. One, you spoke about exploration and exploitation previously. And we always tell customers that data journey itself is a journey. There's no point where we say, okay, we're done with this project. Because exploration, as you keep on exploring, you discover new insights that gets looped into or filled into or feeded into exploitation. Okay. So that to me is a continuous loop. That's what we have discovered. And we always tell customers that please, you need to look at it from that point of view, that the more you discover, the more insight you generate, the more it fits into your project. Okay. So that's the first part of it. The second part of it, when we start talking about data protection and data governance, it's a bit of a headache, massive headache. Because, in cybersecurity, we specialize in this space, and we talk about it a lot. And we say that when you start talking about data protection, you start putting in lots of what you cannot do. This is not possible, and that's not possible. We have to stay within the framework of certain regulations. And we start talking about that, you're putting parameters into innovation. Okay. And that becomes a very difficult situation because you don't know what can we do forward and what we cannot do. Hence, involvement of chief security data protection officers, or chief, what we call data protection officers, which I think is the newest job title in Kenya because so many organizations are getting those people now. But yeah, it's not, I would not say it's an enemy of regulation, but it is obviously something to be very mindful about. And at the same time, innovation to me is what's possible and what can we do, really touch the sky. Regulation tells you no, you cannot. And it becomes a very difficult pull and push kind of situation there.
Yeah. So interesting enough, because in different forums of conversation, people actually say that the defensive side of data is what enables the offensive. You'll only be able to drive very fast if you have the right kind of brakes. So it's really important to have this. Maybe, Ken, we can move to you and go into the challenges. What challenges have you faced with this kind of transformation? Maybe give us a practical example, and how were you able to tackle it?
Top of my mind, I can talk about two main challenges that we are having. So one is a data culture challenge within the organization. The problem we are having basically is we sometimes want to train a small group of people to be very data savvy and then leave the rest of the organization to figure out their own way about handling data and being able to use data into their day-to-day practices. So we need to rethink how we can be able to make all staff members within the organization be a bit savvy to use data in their decision-making, in their day-to-day practices. So data culture, and it has to start from the top. If the CIOs, the CISO does not or do not use data to make decisions, then it will be very difficult to push that agenda to the staff. The second thing, and I think it's just in line with what my friend here has just mentioned, is on data protection. And I'll use that to give an example. So data organizations, and I'm not trying to ask how Francis uses his personal data from NIVAS. We have an insatiable appetite for collecting personal data. And that brings about a big challenge on data breaches and all that. I'm currently acting as a DPO in Moringa, and that's why I can give this example. So we try to innovate in Moringa based on students' data and come up with solutions that can help students, let's say, identify when they are having challenges with their studies, when they have basically challenges within the training period, and how can we be able to come up with strategies to mitigate that before it gets too late for them to be able to perform the way they want. So ideally, we are collecting not just the academic data, but some behavioral data that is being used to be able to innovate using that data. And you see, the problem is you need to sit back and ask yourself, how is this going to impact the student? Is it going to cause them maybe think that we are invading in their privacy, or are we looking at it and they'll be able to understand that this data set is being used for my benefit? So that's really another murky ground that I'm still trying to figure out how we can be able to ensure that we use data in the right way. And again, data limitation. So if we talk about collection, because ODPC, and I'm not representing them, have the principle of collection limitation. So how much can we collect and say that this is enough from the user so that you can be able to use it?
Yeah. So interesting fact that you bring on culture, because most strategies that speak to data usually miss out the aspect of culture and change. And it's really an important facet to ensure that you're able to adopt data. Let's move to the platforms and tools. If you look at OnPhone, what are those platforms tools? Because we are in a tech conference. What is this mix of platforms architecture that is actually required to get this right?
Yeah, I think for the platforms, it depends with what industry you are in. For us, we use a number of tools because we have tremendous amounts of data. So, for example, you'll find us using things like Hive data lakes, right? Things like Kafka for real-time data streaming. So there's a number of tools. You have to be very, very specific based on the industry that you are in. You have to understand that for myself, this is how I receive data. Some people receive data every second. Yeah, others, they receive maybe data in batches of maybe daily, weekly. So you'd have to get the right tools for your package. But for us, mainly we use the big data structures to be able to analyze and get more information from the data that we have so that we can be able to make the right decisions.
Yeah, interestingly enough, and I actually mentioned to most people who are starting their journeys in data that it doesn't matter what type of tool you have, but you have to understand how to use the different tools available to you to tick off the key components of a proper architecture. Let's go into the controversy of this topic, and Francis will lead us off, which is who should lead data-driven innovation? Is it the CIO, the CDO called digital, the CEO, the business head? Start us off. What's your view?
Okay, yeah, that's a very interesting question. Everybody has a role to play, certainly. You need ICT, of course, to build the vision, or rather, you need the business or the CEO to set the vision, and you need ICT, for instance, to build this vision. But there's one thing I always find very interesting. Sometimes I listen to our chief of strategy talking, or I listen to our chief of finance talking, and I sort of wish that I would have their mind on my data analysts, those people who are actually working with this data, because whenever my chief of strategy looks at data and you hear the insights coming out of the way he's analyzing that piece of data, you come to the conclusion that if you have the data, if you have got the tools and you have developed the vision and everything, but you don't know how to use that data, you're not going to gain value out of it. So how do you create the culture of making sure that people in the organization are constantly referring to the voice of the data before coming to conclusions? We constantly would hear our CEO asking, because our organization at one point was one where people preferred to debate a lot. He would constantly ask, where is the voice of the data? Can we see a dashboard regarding this topic? Can we hear the voice of the customer? And even the voice of customer has to come in form of data. So I think you need everybody. You obviously need a chief data officer, because you're not going to get the end product, which is that nice dashboard, unless the whole spectrum of data has been looked at, from the data sources, the way they are integrated, the security, are you collecting the right data, all the way now to the last step, which is now the visualization and the using of that data.
Thank you so much, Francis. Kevin, you can weigh in. Who do you think should lead this thing?
I think the vision, just to echo what he said, the vision has to be set at the top. But you need to have everyone on board. You need everyone in the team to be aligned and to have the same voice. You need everyone to have the culture where they can share their ideas and bring in what innovative ideas that they have. You also need to relook and ensure that you have a culture where you re-engineer your processes. right? Always find out from the team, how best can we do this? How can we help you? How can the technology and the data that we have be enhanced to help you make informed decisions, right?
Excellent.
So, yeah.
Thank you. So maybe a final set of 1 or 2 questions. Hasmukh, I'll go to you. I think we have to ask something about AI because the audience will think we are not serious. So we'll ask a question about AI. So if you look at innovation and the balance of stability, because what we have discovered in the tech world is that every day there's something new coming up, and now we have AI. But again, we already have stable systems that are creating value for us in the organization. How do you balance the two? How do you balance stability and the need to keep on innovating? And a good example is the AI era that we're in right now.
Spot on. And it's, I tend to tell my customers and clients and generally that we live in very unstable times and we need to embrace instability rather continuously. That's the only way to continuously innovate. Because if you don't, so much change is happening daily. There's so much happening. It's very easy to get siloed and get left behind. So I think it's about embracing that mindset that we must keep on moving and adopting. Yeah.
Thank you so much. We have 2 minutes or so remaining. So I think if allowed, we can take 1 or 2 questions before we make some closing remarks. Any question from the audience, just raise your hand. Wherever you're seated, we'll be able to bring a revolving mic to you. And if there are none, we'll be very happy that you have understood. No questions? So maybe I'll just take the 2 minutes remaining to just ask for any closing remarks. Given that we are here to learn about data-driven innovation, what should be the takeaway? What is that final thought that you feel the audience should take home and know exactly how to implement into their strategies? Starting with you.
So the final takeaway would be we're talking about data, and this data, we're going to use it to re-engineer our processes and make decisions. It's important that we have clean data from the word go, right? So you have to go back and clean your information, clean your data, because this is the information that flows through the entire organization. I'll give an example of a financial institution that requires credit team to work with the customer experience, and having to make those decisions from data that is accurate would really enhance the customers and grow their customer base, consequently profitability of the organization.
Thank you so much. Hasmukh, any closing remarks?
Yeah, I see it as the data, as a science, it's a journey. And I think we need to approach it as that if you do something, it's going to give you a certain outcome as a destination. But I think if you, that it's a journey. You keep on digging and you keep on discovering new insights, and it adds to your competitive advantage. And to me, that's a critical part that many people don't get. It's not a project. It's a continuous thing. It goes. Yeah.
Excellent. Any final remarks in 10 seconds or less?
Thank you, Hartnell. I would say find a sweet spot between data exploration and data exploitation. That will really help you to be able to know how to strategize, making money in the short time and being able to innovate and drive the future.
Thank you so much. Any final ones?
I think for me, you have to look at it 2 ways. Number one, you have to have very good data. And as my panelists have said, flowing data. So you have to have the right structures to get you the right data. And then secondly, it's about AI. Whatever industry you are in, you need to take advantage of AI. However, AI will need a lot of data from you. So you need to have the right data for it to work for you. That's it.
Thank you so much, Francis.
Yeah, I think when you are setting a data strategy, please bear in mind, it's not a revolution, it's an evolution. It's continuous improvement. Start in the most basic way, and every insight you get is going to lead you to another insight. And gradually over time, you'll actually achieve the whole data strategy vision that you set.
Thank you so much. Please join me as we clap and appreciate the panel. Please, the panelists. You may maybe stand in front and take a final photo. I don't know where the photographer is quickly, so that we remember this day as being the first panelists.